So I'd like to welcome everybody to a gathering that's been long in the making in a short amount of time. So tonight, we're going to be going over our thoughts on the film that we all watched, hopefully. So Jay, I'm actually going to ask you to start us off here. I know I was going to start it, but I think I'd like to ask you to start it off.
Sure. So I'm Jay Rosenbaum, the Rabbi Emeritus of Herzl-Ner Tamid, and 4 years ago, my friend and colleague, Dr. Mark Jones, and I began our work together to reinvigorate the Black-Jewish relationship in the Seattle area. We were inspired by Dr. King's vision of building beloved community, and we were concerned about the growing tendency in our society to see anyone who differs from us as an enemy. Little did we suspect that we would find a model for beloved community within the walls of a Washington state prison. Our journey connected us with two remarkable leaders, Dr. Gilda Sheppard, our filmmaker, and Karen Lee, Director of Pioneer Human Services, known especially for its reentry work with the formerly incarcerated. Each of them, in their own way, have been working to help us see the humanity in the most invisible, most undervalued people in our society, the men and women who are incarcerated in our prisons. From our initial contacts, a multi-faith group of community leaders gathered around Gilda and Karen, determined to show Gilda's film in order to expand public awareness, to spark public conversation, and to find new ways of making our justice system more humane. George Floyd was murdered because he was not seen as a human being. The path to changing the culture that devalued George Floyd's life begins with changing the way we see. We've all seen, since I've been down, how might the world be different if someone had seen in the 16-year-old Kimonti Carter the inspirational leader that he is today? How many Kimonti Carters are we missing right now because of our inability to see them? As a way of guiding and shaping our conversation tonight, we're going to hear from Kimonti himself. I'd like to invite our filmmaker, Dr. Gilda Sheppard, to introduce Kimonti to us.
Thank you, Jay. Go for it, Gilda. Go for it.
Okay, well, thank you all for this phenomenal journey of justice, this phenomenal journey of building a beloved community, this journey where we worked very hard, Karen and I and Mark and all the rabbis and Christians who came along with us, and organizations. I see people from the Village of Hope. I see former students at Washington Correctional Center for Women. I see you all coming into moving from the waiting room, coming to be here with us. I am so happy that you all are here, and I'm so glad that this film does what we think art should do, promote social justice, not just put a mirror up to society to say what is, but to give us an example of what can be. And that's what we wanted for Since I've Been Down, my first feature-length documentary. And also we wanted to show you things, as James Baldwin says, is a role of art. This is the role of an artist, is a role of a lover. If I love you, I have to show you things that sometimes you do not see. And oftentimes, many of us do not see the humanity in folks who are different, particularly BIPOC people, you know? If we look at the disparities, we look at who's in prison, we look at, policies of punishment, but those extend to us. We become the canary, right? And believe me, if they come for me in the morning, they will come for you in the afternoon. So this beloved community is to show our connections. Soon at about 2 minutes, Kimonti Carter will call on this cell phone and you'll be able to, and we're going to have a bit of a conversation. But let me tell you something about Kimonti before he comes on. And I just talked to him a few minutes before we had this started. So Kimonti Carter, I met him in about 2009 when he and a lot of his colleagues were students in my sociology classes at Washington State Reformatory. And, you know, I thought me being very progressive, going into prison, that no big deal. And I was shamefully surprised at the brilliance, and not only brilliance, wisdom and collaborative behavior that these students inside the prison walls were exhibiting in my classroom. I mean, rigor. And then I realized there was a group called the Black Prisoners Caucus, a prisoner-initiated 40-year organization that has been very much supported by such groups as on the outside, like the Village of Hope, who come in and sponsors, and so many other people, right? And Kimonti Carter was the president of the Black Prisoners Caucus at the time, right? And so, and then at the age of 34, when he was moved to another prison, Kelle, he had the idea of reaching beyond race lines, but keeping things intact. And he started, with the help of his colleagues, an organization that is really punctuated in the film Since I've Been Down, an organization called Taking Education and Creating History. Notice, they didn't call it changing history. They said creating history, because they're not just going to go to the past, look at that, but use that as a scaffold so you can create history. And that was intentional. So it went across race lines, went across ethnic lines, it went across crime lines, right? Kimonti Carter and his colleagues went to Asian Pacific Islanders. They went to the white nationalist gangs that happened to be there, other different groups of people, and they teach each other. And as I speak, here's Kimonti Carter. Okay. You'll get to hear what I hear sometimes, so many people hear.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from an inmate at Stafford Creek Correction Center. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, thank you.
Once I pushed the wrong button.
Hello?
Hi, Kimonti. Can everybody hear him?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. We're online. We have 222 people and they keep coming in. We have some of your friends here
Okay.
So I just gave an introduction to you when I first met you in 2009, and how at the age of, I think you were like in your early 30s, you and your colleagues started the TEACH program with the help of many different, and we have your picture up on the screen, Kimonti, looking all proud, sitting in your cell at Clellan Bay. Okay, so you would like it. So Kimonti, let's just get started. You want to say something, hello, before I get started?
Well, yes, you know what I'm saying? Just, you know what I'm saying? Hello, everybody. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Thank you for having me. Thank you for attending and tuning in tonight. And, you know, I hope that, you know, this turns out to be a fruitful night for everybody. So, you know what I'm saying? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kimonti. Thank you. You're one of the people that have brought us all together. So let's start with this question, Kimonti. Let's look at this as a kind of a conversation. We were talking about how Martin Luther King says that when you look at a beloved community, you know, you look at peace and those kinds of things. And I think it's very interesting that you have developed a beloved community. So tell us about the evolution of you and your work and what led to the Kimonti Carter we know today.
All right, so, you know, the evolution of me and my work and what led to, you know, the Kimonti that we know today, I think it was, you know, it was a loving and a thriving community, right, in prison, for myself, which was, I think the Black Prisoners Caucus was, very instrumental in, in my growth, in my development, in the way that I see the world, in the way that I, kind of interrogated, many of my own values and beliefs, and just the world that I lived in. And so, as I, continue to be around, a community of Black men, right, who were supported by, Black women who was coming from the community and strong Black men, they was coming in really, loving us through our shortcomings, right? I think that was probably the biggest, the biggest impact that was really beginning to change how I viewed myself and how I viewed, the world. Because, most of the people who are in prison, like we've done, horrible things in the community. To people from our own community, to people who look just like us, who struggle like us, who are, striving to overcome, all of the hardships that, poor and under-resourced communities deal with. And, many of our sponsors and our volunteers and our supporters of the Black Prisoners Caucus, they was coming in and they was loving us through all of that, right? And asking us some of the tough questions, like, okay, well, what could we do? What can be done different? Like, how can we reach young people from being able to end up in the same situation that you guys are ending up in? And they was also challenging us to be able to, if we didn't know the answers, find them. Right? If we wasn't learning and we wasn't educating ourselves, to also pursue knowledge of self and knowledge of history and knowledge of culture and all of these different types of things. And I think that being able to surround myself with a whole bunch of people who came from similar backgrounds, but who also loved the Black community and the community that we came from enough to be able to work on themselves is, what also empowered me to move in that same direction. So it was definitely community, right? And I think that what I ultimately arrived at the place of doing it, that I realized that once I started to feel the love that I was given, I realized that I had to give the love back. So that's that in sense is my evolution to myself and the work. Like it started with the circle, the BBC circle.
Wow, that's beautiful, Kimonti, particularly to talk about two major things, community and love, the practice of love. And I think that that's one of the things that seems to be the scaffold in your development of Teach, this foundation of inclusivity. You bring people together from different backgrounds and create community. Today, we are building a community across multiple faiths. How can people on the outside of prison build this multi-faith community using Teach as a BBC Teach as a kind of paradigm, a model? How can we use what you have done in a way that supports communities inside prison? So how can people on the outside of prison build this multi-faith community in a way that supports the communities inside of prison?
And I think that Teach is it comes from the womb of the Black Prisoners Caucus, right? So you can't have Teach without the Black Prisoners Caucus, and BBC taught us about not throwing anybody away, right? Being able to love each other through, their shortcomings and their hardships. And I think that the thing that really that really sat with me is that it had to be something that you believed in first. If you didn't believe in the circle, if you didn't believe in our abilities to be able to change the dynamic and the trajectory of our life, if you didn't believe that people could change, then it wasn't something that you was going to continue to keep contributing to. And so as I hear about this wonderful work that this multi-faith community is building, I ultimately think that the biggest thing is it starts with faith. You have to believe in the work that you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And I think that the believing in the work and believing that tomorrow can be better than today also is going to challenge everybody who believes that this community can be something very dynamic. They're also going to have to look inside of self and ask, what do I need to change in order for this to work? Right? Because we're not walking into this circle perfect, right? Because we're walking into many of these communities with our own with our own baggage, right? With our own perceptions about who other religions, other races, other cultures are, what they believe, and how this may hinder me being able to give everything that I need to give in order for this to work. And so I think, in order for this to work, we have to believe that it can work. We have to believe that each individual is looking into themselves and they're doing their own cleaning up inside their minds, inside of their hearts, as a way of coming to the table and address and to be open, right, about some of the hesitations and the concerns that they may have, and we have to work through them together. Because through the BPC, through Teach, right, when we get to talking about like the Teach is just the result of years and years and years of struggle, right? Of growing through doubt, suspicion, personal agendas, right? Like everything that exists in the world also exists in prison. But we had to be able to challenge and confront those things in order for us to get to a place where we could be honest with ourselves. So when issues arise, the people who are building this community, we can be honest enough in order for me to confront you with the truth, and vice versa. And so if we're not creating a community in which I can be confronted with the truth and realize that me being confronted with the truth is coming out of a place of love because a person wants me to become better, a person also wants me to become more honest, then I think it's going to really struggle to be able to gain a foothold and to begin to grow into something beautiful. Because I think sometimes that poison that resides inside the heart or resides inside the mind, because we refuse to let go of our own issues. Sometimes it poisons the roots of the flowers before they can grow. And so I think that first we got to believe that it's possible, and then I think second is about getting active. We have to get involved. I know when we talk about the criminal justice system, I know regardless of what your faith is, what your economic situations is, I think we also have to be honest about institutional racism, right? We also have to be honest about disproportionality in sentencing. We also have to be honest about police brutality. We also have to be honest about racial profiling, right? Because if you want to help the things that are going on inside the system, right, we also have to be honest about the people who also live and exist in these communities. These same people who are going to church and to the mosque and going into many of these religious circles, and we're allowing the institution of racism to remain in place. And so if you want to help continue to support and build the community that is happening on the inside, many of the men and the women who are doing time, we're trying to take as much responsibility as we can for the actions and the misdeeds that we've done, right? But what we're asking of the community is that we need the community to be able to stand up and continue that fight to dismantle institutional racism at all fronts. Because most of it exists as policies. It exists in our legislature. Our lawmakers are still allowing laws to be able to exist that are treating certain communities different than other communities. And so I think that if we're serious about building community across all cultures and across all religious faiths, I think that we also have to be honest about those things, right? And getting out and dismantling the things that are ultimately hindering the progression and the growth of the communities over others. And that's the work that I believe that needs to be done. I think that's the work that many of the interfaith and the multi-faith communities are out there can really help and support us with, is to really echo the voice against racist institutions, especially the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to the mistreatment of Black and brown folks.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kimonti. As we were saying earlier, oftentimes we are the canary, and then they come to get other people afterwards. But oftentimes we are the testing grounds, as BIPOC people, as poor folks, as people who live on the margin. You kind of spoke to this, excuse me, already. But what does a more humane justice system look like to you? I think you said it in everything that you said, community, love, engaging in the difficult dialogue that involves racism, white supremacy, even homophobia and patriarchy and all of that. But could you extend that? And then, what do you think, what does a more humane justice system look like? I know that's quite a question.
It is. I think when I picture humane, right? When I think about a system that is just, I think about for people who are in control, right? A humane justice system would look like the people who are in control and who are casting down punishments and sentences, that those sentences and the punishments that you're casting down be similar to the punishment and the sentence you would cast down if it was your own family who made the mistake, who made the ugly decision. Right?
I hear you.
Right. I think that the thing is that the reason that it's inhumane, the reason that it's unjust, the reason that disproportionality and racism and all of these things begin to exist is because the people who are in control aren't the people who are the majority of the people who are getting punished. And so it's easy for us to see why so many people from the South End or the CD or the Hilltop or the East Side is ultimately making up a larger percentage of the prison population.
Wow.
Versus people who come from University Place, Mercer Island, Medina, Bellevue, right? And in some cases, many of the cases are similar.
Yeah.
The crime is similar, but the punishments are different.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're talking about a humane justice system, right? If our skin color didn't matter, then we wouldn't have to continue to keep speaking about inhumane treatment. Right? We wouldn't have to continue to keep speaking about and trying to address the disproportionality in resources and services and different types of things of that nature. Because the Black Prisoners Caucus was designed and developed in prison as a way of providing Black men with an opportunity and a platform to be able to provide themselves with the resources that they need in order for them to be able to rehabilitate themselves. Right? And so the reason that they had to provide it to themselves is because the system, who was ran and organized by people who did not look like them, who don't understand the culture, who don't understand the history, didn't feel that the thing that we believed that we needed was available for us. And so when you fast forward it from 1972 to 2013, when we made the decision that we was going to create the BPC Teach program, we were still confronted with the same issues, right? Because now you have Black and brown kids, right, and poor white kids in prison, sentenced to prison at a very young age, and now we're being denied access to education. We're being denied access to job training skills and all of these things that we need as a way of being able to properly rehabilitate and transition back out to the community, right? And so a more humane justice system would provide opportunities no matter where you came from, no matter what your sentence structure was, no matter what type of affiliation that you may have had in the past, right? I think that as human beings, right, everybody deserves decency, everybody deserves a chance, right? We're not saying that we need a world without punishment or a world without discipline, but we're basically saying is that the discipline also has to be measured with the same ounce of mercy. And consideration and love. And when we find ourselves at a place to where our system operates as such, then I think that we can say that we've been able to do the work that Martin Luther King and many of the giants have come before us that was always striving to eradicate, and that was discrimination.
That's beautiful, Kimonti. Yeah, a more humane justice system would mean that we wouldn't need a prison because we have what we need in our community. So the cultural punishment does not That is so, thank you so much, Kimonti. I just want to let you know we have over 220 people here listening. And so thank you so much, Kimonti.
No problem.
We could talk to you forever, but we got a whole program going on now.
Right. Well, thank you for having me.
All right, Kimonti.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kimonti.
Okay, everybody said hi, Kimonti.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello, thank you.
everybody can say bye to him.
Bye-bye. Bye, Kimonti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Much
wonderful
love, much
Okay, he says, have a wonderful evening. Thank you, my son. I call him my son. They call me Mama G. Okay, bye. All right. Okay. Off to someone else. Thank you.
All right. I think that's me. Thank you, Gilda. Well, that was an incredible blessing for all of us to be able to speak. It was the double whammy. The filmmaker, Gilda Sheppard, you're so inspirational. Thank you, Gilda. And with Kimonti Carter himself, who has become a true inspiration, I think, to so many of us. So we're here tonight for several reasons, and we want to get to action steps. But before we do that, I actually think that Kimonti just gave us the charge quite well, that it is really hard to talk about large questions like criminal justice reform or systemic racism without first seeing the humanity of every individual and without beginning the process of changing community from within, understanding what our role is to play in all of this. The film so powerfully reminds us that this is about real human experiences and real human beings at the core. And tonight's program is construed as a multi-faith program. That's the language that you saw when you signed up. And whatever faith tradition or whatever belief system you bring tonight, I want to just pause for a moment to give everyone a chance to think about what your beliefs are, your core beliefs, when it comes to thinking about how we treat human beings. For me, core beliefs coming from my Jewish tradition include the idea that when God created the universe, Adam and Eve were created first. I read the creation story in a metaphoric way, and I've had a chance to learn some of these texts with Rabbi J. Rosenbaum, who started the program off, and with some of you. But that when God created a single human being at the beginning, that was in part to make the point to us, metaphorically, that none of us is more deserving than any other, that all human beings are in a fundamental sense created at the same time with the same ancestry and created equal. And a second belief that is core for me has to do with the power of teshuvah, the power for human beings to change, the capacity for change. So when I think about those, what it means for us to build societies in which we really treat one another as equals and give one another the capacity to change, that's some of what brings me to this conversation. I imagine that each of you have your own answers. So we're going to break into groups. I want to thank all of the moderators. We're going to break into 18 groups, and the fact that we have 18 incredible human beings here who are willing to moderate this conversation. I just want to thank all of you who are giving your time and who prepared to be able to facilitate one of these conversations. And recognize quickly Rabbi Jill Borden, Reverend Kelly Brown, Archery Kovner, Michelle Glasser, Sarah Bowden, Mark Pedersen, Gilda Sheppard, Kiwi Hamilton, Paul Benz, Reverend Linda Smith, Jennifer Kelly, Maxine Alloway, Jonas David, Elise DeGoyer, Elizabeth Dickinson, and Reverend Steve Baber, Rabbi J. Rosenbaum, and Mark Jones. Thank you so much to all of our moderators. We're going to break into groups. The goal of the next 30 minutes will be to provide space for all of us on this call to lean into the conversation, to process the film and its key themes, to think about how the film leads us towards transformation and action, and to give us a sense that we are not alone in this, but rather that we are part of a broader movement for change. So I think we're ready with that to move into breakout groups. Thank you, everyone.
I hope they were deep conversations. What I'd like to do is introduce Greg Steen.
It made teachers out of all of us, right? Initially, it was just the idea of bringing professors in like Dr. Sheppard, or Auntie Gilda, as I call her, and, doing classes like mass media and, reclaiming Black manhood and things like that, historical history classes like that. But what I found out is that once we got a taste of the whole school thing and just building up our brains to the capacity where, it empowered us to create, right? And that's part of that acronym in there, right? And this is organically the way it happened is after a while, Kimonti Carter I call him Carter. He was the first one to step forward and said, well, I'm going to do this class. I'm going to teach algebra and I'm going to teach writing and so forth, right? And so everybody started catching on and saying, well, if you're doing that, well, maybe I could teach this class. So we started building curriculums and lessons that would hold a 10 to 12 week block. And we introduced those curriculums to the institution and created a system. We had a board. And we were dead serious about what we were talking about every time. It was faculty that we had, and organically, we became the teachers. We taught our own classes on our own spaces. We had orientations, and we had flyers and announcements. We had tutoring, etc. But after a while, what I noticed, and this was a personal thing that I noticed, was that if it meant something to you as an individual and you wanted to express it to someone, you're like your testimony, you were able to create a class based on that, right? I mean, history classes, African studies, Viking history, anger stress reduction. If you had an anger problem, then you was the dude that was going to teach anger stress reduction, because nobody but you could tell these guys how to control your anger, right? You're going to pull in all the resources for that, and you were going to find what worked, and you were educating and changing the population. That's where the different groups and the cultural and the races came together, right? And it was not just all the white guys in Viking history. It was just not all the Black guys in African studies. We were all mixed up, not Asian studies. Everybody was doing everything, right? And for me, when I finally got a chance to speak to something that was close to my heart, and that was addiction. So I created a class, and I was given the opportunity to become the teacher, become the counselor, hold the group and hold the space. And that was the power of Teach to me, is that, gave us an opportunity to become the teachers, right? And that's what it meant to me, more so.
So how did you actually get the system to agree to it?
Well, at the time we had great superintendent, associate superintendent, not to say anything about the present administration, but at that time they were very open and very receptive to creative ideas. And Cloud Bay was notorious for, the technology that we had there versus other prisons, right? We had computers, intranet systems, and computer coding and things like that. So with that capability, we were able to get down, man, and we were able to create syllabus, through Fabian's Fund, to get workbooks and things like that. And we made our own books, man. And we became the guys who did that, and it empowered us. And it also made the population believe that they could do it themselves. They could take our lead and, change themselves and take it out to the streets and the community and just take it to different institutions. But we had a very cooperative administration at that time. They said, look, if you guys put it together, we'll give you the space. And that's what they did. And that's how we got it done. I mean, I could count up to one time where we had at least 14 to 15 classes going at one time, morning, afternoon, and evening. Yeah, we were around the clock. And, it was, we made certificates. Matter of fact, I still got my African Studies certificate right here, but we designed our own certificates, man. And at the end of the class, guys got certificates, and it was official programming in the institution, meaning that it was in the system as a program approved class for that individual. And so for a guy who had a DV or whatever his problem was on the street, some get court orders to take certain classes, but not all the time these classes are available at these institutions. So what Teach did, we provided ways for guys to get certificates and coursework for anger issues, substance abuse issues. We provided ways for guys to know their history. And as we know, once you know your history, it's a clear navigation to where you want to go and what you want to do. And once we hooked up with Seattle Central College, we were officially able to facilitate the guys that were banned from the 7-year situation. Life without parole, those were the guys that were on the original Teach board, the guys that had 96, 105 years, life without parole ×5 and things like that. Those were the dudes that established that. And it was Kimonti's vision initially that he rolled out in the Education Summit in 2013, I believe, that he laid it down. And this is how it's going to be. And that's the way it went.
Wow. Where would you say it's at today? And what do those of us that are watching and participating in this, where would you say what you just talked about Teach is at today, and what do you think our roles are in helping this process directly?
Well, Teach in his current capacity is widely known for beginning at Clown Bay, but I think some of the beginning stages actually took place at Monroe. And so I want to make sure that, we give credit to the things and the work that the brothers were doing, the BPC and all the sponsors that were coming in Monroe to really set the platform for that, which was reestablished at Clown Bay. But Clown Bay had the environment to where it was ripe for that type of program. I remember one of the first speeches that Kimonti gave is that he went to the locations where the brothers were. He went to Juma, he went to the gym, he went to the domino table, and he got all the brothers together. He went where they were. He didn't expect them to come to him. But when we finally had our first meeting, he said that, look, we were called something else, cultural unity or something like that, which is fine. It was a collective of the brothers. But he said, look, we ain't got nothing coming if we don't change the name to Black Prisoners Caucus, right? And once we did that, we received the support of the community, which came up, the Village of Hope, Fabian's Fund, countless other people that came into the circle. We even had the city of Seattle come into the circle and talk about the homeless issue, right? Because these are voices that are absent from most of our communities right now. This is where we were, and we're not only at Clown Bay, but Airway Heights and different facilities. But now Teach has developed into a system that can help more people than it did at Clown Bay, right? It's not doing anything different. The core principles remain the same. It's just that, we're able to help more people if we're in different locations. And now it's at Purdy, it's at Stafford Creek, where Kimonti is right now. It's still at Clown Bay. It's, we need to get one in Monroe, but it's not changing too much, but it's just sticking with the core principles that don't leave one behind, right? Because that one could be the one that could change the day and they could change the world and create that history. So, once guys start receiving their associate's degrees, you knew it was real, right? You knew that the original idea that to obtain associate's degree by any means necessary was possible once those degrees start rolling in, because we kept pressing for each class that we took. We put our heart and soul into it. And I think that the film captures it beautifully in so many aspects. But just to be a part of that behind the scenes was, I ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner with Carter, picking his brain. And I'm older than him. But I saw that he was a brilliant mind, is what I described it, because I really tried to find ways to describe this cat. But he's probably one of the sharpest dudes that I've met in a long time. I've been around for a minute. So and the other part about community, I think that just continue doing what you're doing. It's not a magic thing that I could say. I think that what you feel that you should do, then that's what you do, then that's good enough. You know what I mean? I think that if you feel like doing more, find a way to make that happen, whatever capacity that is. Sometimes it's difficult for a large amount of people to work collectively and think of the same mind, right? Well, maybe that's not what it's supposed to be like, but I think equally and effective. So it's been working, and I would just say continue with the efforts that you continue with, and that's just fine, man. I mean, there's always something new that we can improve upon, but we have to ebb and flow with the system as it moves. Even with the virus, we have to continue to do somersaults if we want to bounce up and down on the trampoline of life. And so, I would just say continue that work.
And I think maybe I have two more questions, two quick ones. One is, and I believe that there's a program for women.
Yeah, WCCW, I know that they want a teach there, but like we always say, that it's imperative in order for a teach to exist, a BPC must exist there first, in which they have. It's just that there's been so many things that have happened over the last couple of years that I think the rollout, I think that Lydia Barlow has done an excellent job of, she's all over the place, establishing that and spreading the word and making sure that, we have the same constitution and bylaws at these different locations. A lot of our conference calls that we were having, in the prior a year or so was a good way to connect. I think that we were the first ones to have like maybe 11 BPC sites on one call at the same time. And that was like a family reunion, right? It was amazing. And I think that we need to get back to that. It's a little difficult to pull that off, but I think that if we continue to do that, in time, everybody will have the established locations and sites that they desire, and it'll take the positive effect that it needs to.
And I think, excellent, thank you. I think my last question would be, so what is the priority of Teach now? What is the current priority?
Well, I mean, the priority of Teach is just to continue. I think that, like I said, the things that the institutions change all the time. And I think that we were able to adapt to those circumstances and changes. And if we're able to just facilitate one class, it's a success, right? It's always going to be changes. It depends on what each institution has its different structures. At Clallam Bay, we had college courses and certificates courses going. So we could easily add up to maybe 18 classes going and guys getting their degrees. And we had fitness classes and et cetera. So it depends on where you're at and what they're able to help with. I know that one of the things is that just to continue, if you read the mission statement of Teach, right, there's nothing has changed from that. And this was written almost 6-7 years ago. So I think that, that's the strength of having bylaws and then board members and things like that, is that so you can always remember what the mission is, right? And I think that, as we get released from prison, we can't forget about, the many organizations that are instrumental in the success of our releases. Recently, I went through a workshop for Pioneer Human Services, where even I thought my resume was, good enough to sustain employment, but it needed work, and it's things like that. And they weren't on my list initially, but it just happened. But it was networking and community support and Yoga Behind Bars and all these organizations all played a role, even the housing through Weld. And it's not just one, it's a collective. And that's what I'm saying, is that there's no magic system for a successful release. It's just, people can help whatever you feel that would help anybody, not just me, but anybody be successful in a transition. Just offer and ask, and either are going to say yes, they need it, or they don't need it. But it's all BPC Teach, man, and that's what it is.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Greg.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Marvelous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Greg. Picking up on Mark's last question, I want to stress that there is no magic solution, but that's why we think that this is an effort that needs to take place over a period of time. From the beginning, Gilda made it clear that she's showing this film not because she wants a one-off, but because she wants a conversation that's going to take place, that's going to gather steam, that's going to gather energy, and that's going to lead to social change. And that doesn't happen overnight. And so there are things that we can do right away. But what I really want to stress more than anything else to everybody here tonight is to stay with us. Don't look at this as a one-time event. Think of this as a conversation that's just beginning. And it's something that didn't happen overnight, and it won't be solved overnight. But let me sketch out just a few very, very basic things that we can already begin to do. And I want to also tell you that we're going to collect all the thoughts that we recorded the sessions tonight. We're going to collect all the thoughts. I know there were already very concrete suggestions that took place in the breakout rooms that we will be able to take advantage of, and we'll reflect them back to you. We will be in touch with you, and we encourage you to be in touch with us. But three things right away that I want to stress. One, first of all, is that our multi-faith criminal justice reform team is working with Pioneer Human Services to create meaningful, well-paying employment opportunities for post-incarcerated clients, as well as young adults who are at risk of incarceration. And we're approaching local corporate employers to train people towards specific job positions that these corporations need to fill, particularly in the area of technology. And here's how you can help, how we can all help. We need mentors, people who will be trained by the PHS staff to mentor these clients on a regular basis. And we need employment connections. If any of you have high-level connections to access decision makers in a company, we need your assistance to gain entree into having the discussion with potential employers. That's number one. Number two, the IF project is one of many projects in the area that does beautiful work. This particular project reaches out to and supports incarcerated women. They have many volunteer opportunities. For example, it's cold in the prison in the wintertime. A gift of warm socks would mean a lot to women who are not used to such small kindnesses. We are posting information on the IF project, and you can be in touch with them directly. Thirdly, we heard in the film that Washington State has no parole. We can work as a public to expand clemency by changing Washington State law. And Reverend Paul Benz, Director of Faith Action Network, is going to tell us more about that.
Great, thanks, Jay. So good to see all of you on, and I'm just going to do this very quickly because we want to make sure we try and end as close to 8:30 as we can. So you see on the screen here, this is Senate Bill 5036, and you can tomorrow morning email or call your state legislators. Each one of you have 3 state legislators and 2 state representatives and a state senator. This is a Senate bill. Senator Moncadingra from the East King County is the prime sponsor of this bill. It passed the Senate last year and made it all the way to House rules. This coming session, which begins on January 10th, it will go back to the Senate because of the process. It didn't pass the House, so it needs to go back to the Senate. But your calls to your 2 state representatives are really, really important. So what does this bill do? You see here it says, ensure that this bill concerning conditional commutation by the Clemency and Pardons Board is passed. So it does two primary things. The very first one is about who can petition and under what conditions can they petition. So first of all, if you have served up to 20 consecutive years, then you are eligible to petition the CPB, the Clemency and Pardons Board. Secondly, so there's 3 parts to who can petition that this bill would allow. If you are in for the 3 strikes, in for life, if you've done 3 strikes, you're in for life, right? That was Initiative 594 all the way back in 1994. We're reforming that. This would reform that. If your 3rd strike is a robbery 2, which is basically a non-violent offense, no weapon used in that offense, and you've served at least 15 years of your life, 3 strikes term, then you can petition. So that's the second part. The third part of this, who can petition and under what conditions, is if you're in for aggravated murder. If you're in for aggravated murder and you've served 25 years of that sentence, then you can petition. So I know this still might seem very, very harsh to you, but this really opens the door in a lot of different opportunities. The other thing that it changes is the board itself. Right now, there are only 5 members on the board appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate. So this would move it from 5 to 10 members, and it would those 10 positions. There's somebody from there's certain seats at the table, like a Superior Court judge, behavioral health professional, someone from the tribes, someone from the faith-based community, someone from a community of color, and someone from an advocacy organization that's involved in reentry, someone that's been a victim of crime from a crime victim organization. So a prosecuting attorney, a law enforcement professional. So it really tries to bring greater racial equity than ever before, and a much broader board. So that's basically what that bill does. And I want to highlight 2 organizations that are very, very critical. Another way to be engaged is, you see it right there on the screen. Civil Survival is made up of formerly incarcerated individuals who have been impacted by the criminal justice system. And one of the leaders of that is now a state representative, Tara Simmons from the Bainbridge Island area. And Tara is an amazing state legislator, just completing her first term, and is an attorney. Was the first, you may remember, she was the first formerly incarcerated person in our state to receive a law degree. So, and I believe in the country, she's the first formerly incarcerated person. So I wanted to lift up that organization. And then also Family Shoulder to Shoulder is another amazing organization that Jenny Parham from the Community Action Network is running. So those are just 2 examples of many organizations that are working to reform our criminal justice system. And I think with that, there are many other bills that you can see on the Faith Action Network website at fanwa.org that we've been working on past sessions, and we'll be working with many of our partners, 2 of those organizations and many others, to better reform our criminal justice system. And yes, writing letters and emails and phone calls, and we can provide all that information for you. And even if you don't know what your district is or who your state legislators are, the 1-800-562-6000 number is they will tell you if it's a toll-free legislative action phone number, 1-800-562-6000. I'll put that in the chat. Jay, I'll leave it at, I'll yield my any excess time that I might have. I'll yield it back.
Thank you, Paul. You did great. And thank you for the work that you are doing. And thanks to so many people who have made tonight possible. Dr. Gilda Sheppard, Kimonti Carter, Greg Steen, Rabbi Rachel Nussbaum, Audrey Kovner, Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown, Dr. Mark Jones. Since I've been Down's impact team, our entire multi-faith criminal justice reform team, our 32 event partner organizations, and all of you for tuning in and showing your interest. Over 200 people here tonight, but over 700 people registered to see Since I've Been Down. That is amazing. And we want to build on that energy. So first, please fill out the survey. Let us know how you want to be involved. Second, watch for updates on the Since I've Been Down social media. We will certainly send you an email, whether you fill out the survey or not, but we would appreciate you filling out the survey. We will send out an email to all 700 of you who registered for the film with follow-up ideas and suggestions, and incorporating some of the suggestions that you made tonight. Tonight was the beginning. We will be in touch with you. We look forward to continuing this very important conversation. help us to build beloved community together. And I'd like to invite Reverend Dr. Kelle Brown to share with us some closing thoughts.
Thank you, Rabbi Jay. Again, I'm Reverend Dr. Kelle Brown. I'm the senior pastor at Plymouth Church, United Church of Christ in downtown Seattle. And I am inviting you in these moments to know that for everything, there is a season. And this is a season of reaping and of harvest, for claiming the necessity of building the beloved community. This is our time, friends, to hear the clarion call that comes across from a liberating God to free the captives and to cultivate Kimonti's vision of a more humane system of justice, to resist the inertia of models of criminality that often do not welcome wonder or curiosity, but assumes guilt on sight. This is our time to think about the brilliance that is locked away by our own doing, and to wonder if our own development has not been arrested alongside our siblings who are incarcerated. This is a claiming time, a time to admit our complicity and to close social distance, building the table so that we can honor our place and our siblings' place in all things. And today I'm inviting you, friends, as we close, to check our own vision. Today, some scales fell from eyes, and we have a larger sense of what is at stake. So let's imagine that our world, our nation, our state, our communities can be different, for they can. Let us imagine that we are the ones that we have been waiting for we are. And we can live into the solidarity and relationship that is required in this moment. It's our work to do. As Rabbi Jay reminded a group of us, we are called to be like Bithia, the Pharaoh's daughter. Like this woman of valor, we are called to extend our arms beyond white supremacy and the manifestations of oppression. We're called to extend our arms beyond stigma and the notions of difference towards the baby in the river. And if we can find if we find our arms too short, to trust God to stretch them and make them ready so that we might embrace all of our siblings. So may we be successful in our internal work, the breaking open of our own hearts, and in our acknowledgement and dismantling of systems, in our building of a world that will be fit for Kimonti when he is released, and all of our siblings who deserve to know the welcome of home, so that justice rolls like a mighty stream, as the prophet Amos says, and so that our faith can move this mountain. And dear friends, if we take on this work, we all will be better for it. Amen.